We are going to get started on making the drawers for our drawer box. What we're going to have to do is measure the openings, and I'm just going to write them on my little scrap piece of cardboard here. So this is 5 3/8 wide. So hopefully the other one's about the same. 5 3/8 wide. And then the bottom one is 11 1/8 wide. And we already know that it's 7 5/8 deep. So we've got that measurement already. Now, when we are making the drawers, when you're starting to put the chipboard together, because we're going to be adding sides and then you're going to be adding paper on the outsides and everything, you want to give yourself lots of room so that the drawers will slide in and out easier. Let me just get this one, I'll show you what I mean. See how it doesn't stick? And I've given myself lots of wiggle room there on either side so that they can pull in and out. So you want to make sure when you're measuring for those, you want to give yourself lots of wiggle room. So these openings are 5 1/4, and so that one's almost 5 3/8. So let's see what our drawer was. Yeah, see, my drawer is almost 5 inches wide. So I've given myself a good couple of inches. Now that is just the finished product. Because I've put tape on and pulled the sides up, it makes it thicker. So for your bottom baseboard, it's going to be smaller than that. Your bottom baseboard is going to be, I think I made the baseboard 5 inches. See, it's 5 inches. So we're going to play with it, and I'll show you how to test it before you actually add any of the packing tape. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with the 5-inch base. And we're going to need a 7 5/8 wide, deep, and then we need a 5-inch base. So I'm going to go ahead and mark on my first piece of chipboard, and I've got about 4 pieces of chipboard that are all the same width. And I'm going to mark off my 7 5/8 first. And that is the first cut I'm going to make with my knife. Now I do have another ruler here, and this is a safety ruler, and I had a hard time finding these. The lady that I was following, a bookmaking lady in the UK, she had one of these because she was cutting chipboard to making books, and she had one of these because she cut her finger on just using a normal metal ruler. This is through Cricut, whatever you want to call the little machine that cuts the little papers. I had to order this, and it was $30. It was quite expensive, but I'm telling you, if your knife ever slipped while you were holding this, these are very sharp knives. So this is the ruler that I use most of the time, just to be safe. And I'm actually going to cut it just to the inside of my mark because I don't want the drawer hanging out too far. So there's my 7 5/8. I think my blade is getting dull because it shouldn't take that many strokes for me to get through there. So what I'm going to do really quickly is change my blade. One of the things that I do for recycling the blades, I have a tin can in my garage, an old pop can, and I put my blades inside the pop can so that if I ever go to recycle them in the recycling or whatever, they're in a tin can and nobody's going to get cut. It won't slice open the bag or anything like that. So I just take a pop tin that has the little opening, and these actually fit right into the opening of the tin can, and then that way nobody's going to get cut when they're in the garbage. All right, so I have a nice new blade, and now we need to cut them 5 inches. Let me just mark my 5 inches. Make sure I'm in the camera here. So we're just going to mark the first one at 5 inches, and then I will use the first one as my template for the second one, because these are going to be the bottoms of the drawers for both of our smaller drawers. Okay, see how well this one cuts. Look at that, 4 swipes, and it's pretty thick, so having a sharp blade really makes a difference. Okay, so do that, and just make sure it's nice and even. And then I'm just going to cut the second one. And I will save that piece. I might be able to use it for another project. So those are my 2 bases. So that's going to be the bottom of the drawer that slides in. And see how we have, oops, see how we have lots of wiggle room in there? Because we're going to be adding sides and paper to the side of the drawer. Okay, so now what we're going to need, we need to find the depth of the drawer. So what you want your sides to be. So this is 3 1/4, and again we have to give some wiggle room, so I'm going to make it 3 inches high. So all of my sides are going to be 3 inches high, and I'm going to take my second board. Let me just write that measurement down. Sides are 3 inches high, and if I get distracted, at least I know what I'm doing here. Let's see if this one has enough to do 1 at least. Yep, so I can reuse this little scrap that I cut off. Let's use this one for these 2 sides. I should be able to get 2 out of that. My hair tickling me. So what I'm going to do first is cut my 3-inch depth. And I want to do that because I want to cut this round edge off. Like there. Get on there. There we go. We'll use our big ruler. I'm going to line up my marks. And we're just going to cut this little piece off. Oops. Cut. There we go. Okay, so now what we need, it has to be the same. I'm just going to work on one drawer at a time here. It has to be the same width. So this is going to be the back end of the drawer, right? So all I do is line it up against one of my yellow lines here on my board. Make sure it's straight. And line up this one. Like that. And then I take my ruler. And I'm just going to make a light cut there. And that moved my board. That's okay. So that will be the back of my drawer. And I'm going to need another one for the front. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to line up my edge of my ruler to the edge of this board. It's nice and straight. And I'm just going to make a slight, I'm going to hold it and do a nice light cut. We're just scoring it so that if it ever moves, when I'm pulling really hard, now I can put my ruler on there and just cut it. The groove's already there. It's harder to cut these smaller pieces because you haven't really got a good hold of them. There we go. So those are my 2 end pieces for the drawer. So I'll have one here and one here. Now we're going to need 2 on the side. So all I'm going to do is I'll cut the 7 5/8 width, and then I'll cut 2 3-inch pieces. And you can probably do it this way. I'm going to cut right down this side because I'm going to need at least, for my second drawer, still I'm going to need sides the same size, right? So let's just cut this whole piece down. Make sure I'm on my cutting mat here. Okay, so that's my 7 5/8. So now I need my 3-inch height. And I normally just use this as my template. Okay, let's move you guys out of the way for a minute. So that way all my edges will be the same height. So now I'm just going to line up my ruler and I'm going to cut my side. There you go. So I have my base, and I normally will write on what the item is so I don't end up cutting cutting one of these pieces thinking it's a loose piece. So that'll be one of my sides, and then we have our other 2 ends like that. So we need one more side. And I'm just going to do the same thing, like that. Make sure it's nice and level. Oops, that one moved. That was not good. Do it again. This chipboard is slippery. Okay, so I'm very lightly going to score so that it won't go to that first mark that I made. There we go. It's only off by a hair. So let's do that and put the ruler there so it won't try and go to that first score mark that I made. It was a mistake. There we go. There. So we have our 2 sides and 4 sides and our base. So that's one of our drawers. Let's do another one. We should be able to get another one of the sides out of this, and let's just use this as our template. And if you don't want to cut it with this, you can actually just make the pencil line like that, and then cut it with your ruler. And let's just double check to make sure that that's going to be exactly 3 inches. Yep. Okay. So we're going to line up our ruler and we're going to cut that. Because I have make a lot of boxes, I save all of these little pieces for other things. That piece isn't going to work either, so we'll set him aside. So that's one. I'm going to set that drawer aside so I don't end up cutting it. And this is my base. And then we have our side. So now we're going to cut another long side, and let's do it this way. That's our 7 5/8. Like that. I think I'm going to cut the 3-inch depth first. Because I don't need, I need to make the smaller side, so I don't want to waste any of the card chipboard. So there's our other side for our base. So now we have to make these two sides. And they have to be 3 inches. So I want to try and save some of the, actually, you know what I'm going to use this piece for? I'm going to cut our base of our bottom drawer. How wide was it again? 11 1/8, so we probably want to make it a little less than 11. And 7 5/8. Do we have enough for 7 5/8? We do. Okay. So it's going to go 7 5/8. I try and use up, I don't want to have a whole bunch of little pieces left over. So I'm going to cut the bottom of my box out of this one. So this is my 7 5/8, going the deep of my bottom drawer. Okay. See, now I only have a little tiny bit left over. So that's my 7 5/8, and now I'm going to cut it to, and I need, this was 5 3/8, and I took off about 3/8, so I'm going to go a little smaller than 11 inches. I'm going to go, let's see, oh, I can't go, look, it's only 10. That's not going to work. I'll peep. All right. I guess I'm cutting 2 more sides, aren't I? So these will be the sides of the long drawer. I should have measured my chipboard first. I thought it was 11 inches long. This one was only 10. All right. That's okay. Still use this piece for the sides of the bottom of the drawer. One. And we'll cut this one. So those are my 2 long sides of that base. And those are my long sides of my drawer. So I need a 3-inch piece that way. So we can do that. Let's cut it 3 inches wide. I normally, if you measure the whole thing out, if you take a whole piece of chipboard and you measure it, well, this will be my base and this will be my sides and everything. Once you start cutting, you may end up, every time you make a cut, you may end up being 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch off, so that when you go to put all your sides together, they actually don't match up. So it's better to cut each piece individually rather than just trying to draw everything onto one piece of chipboard and then cut it out later, because it will not. Trust me, I've done it many times and it just doesn't work. So it's better to just cut each piece as you go. Okay, so this one is the 3 inches. So this is my side here. So this is the 3 inches of the height, and then this is the, one of the ends, if you call it the ends. There we go, and I'm just matching up those. Make sure that's nice and smooth along the edge of my ruler. And I'm just going to make a light score mark. I'm not going to cut it too much. I'm going to move this guy out of the way. And that's just a pencil line. It's not a cut. And then I'm going to cut this piece. There we go. So now I have my base. Move this guy away. one of my ends. I have to trim that a bit. And my other base is too wide. It is, one side is wider than the other. How's that? Alright, we're going to trim this down a bit then. And then this is my one side, and this is the other, so we just need one more end. I'm just going to double check my measurements here. Yeah, it's only off by a smidge, so I'm not too worried about that. That's okay. So we need one more end like this, and I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of chipboard. Some of my other pieces. There's one. And I'm just going to cut this piece off of this. And again, I'm just going to lightly score it. There we go. I'm going to cut the smaller end first because it's harder to cut when it's a smaller piece. Like that, and then this way. There we go. So there's my two end pieces, my base, and my two sides. And that's for my two smaller drawers. I've got them both set aside. And what I'm going to do is tape one of them together with some masking tape, and we're going to try and fit it into the drawer to see if it fits. So let's do that next. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and tape this just as a test run. So I'm just going to take some of my masking tape, and I'm just going to set it on my joints where they join. And again, this is just a test run. This is not how it's staying together. So we're going to quickly add some tape here. Like that. And then I'm just going to take 4 pieces of tape. I'm just attaching 4 pieces to the edge of my table here. Oops, there we go. There we go. Keeps curling up on me. Okay, 4 pieces. Okay, so now what we're going to do is you're going to join the inside edges, and you're just going to let them touch. So you're going to have a little space. So the corners, there's going to be like a little V there. It's not going to be together that way. So you're just touching the inside edges. So I'm just going to put a little tiny piece of tape there. The same on this side. Tiny little piece of, tape there. And this is just a test run, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. But you just want to make sure that this is going to fit inside that space. Now I think I did tape the other one, and I know I made a mistake on the measurement. When I did the depth, I did the same, took the measurement of the depth of the box, which was 7 5/8. And again, you have to take off some of the measurement for, and I'm just going to show you before I put this guy in. See how the drawer sticks out of the box? Here, it kind of sticks out about 1/8 of an inch because we didn't take into account the thickness of this board and this board because it's sitting outside of the base. So the base is 7 5/8, but I also have to take into account this width, and then the paper that we put on there. So for this one, I cut it down to 7 inches. And let's see if this guy fits better. There, now that just slides in there perfectly. Goes right inside the box. There's the bottom of my box, level with my shelf. So I have to trim the base and the two long sides of this other one to make it fit properly. So let's just move this over. So that's why you always do a test run, to make sure it fits inside the box, inside the little drawer part, and that you have a little bit of room. You want to have enough room that when you cover this with the paper and the packing tape, that you can get the drawer in and out. You don't want it catching on the top or the bottom. And the height is right on both of these. So that's great. I'm happy with that. So I just have to fix this box. This one is correct. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this masking tape off very carefully. And I would save the masking tape. I just stick it to the edge of my table because we do use it. You might use it for something a little bit later on. Maybe when we test the bigger drawer, we can save some of that tape. Sometimes the chipboard sticks to it and you have to throw it away. But you can reuse some of it. So we're just going to take those off. So this measurement is correct. Let's just take these off real quick. And the measurement for these, pull that guy off. It is paper, so it will pull some of a little bit of the chipboard off with the tape, but like I say, it's so much better to measure than to try it without. So this measurement, this length, oops, wrong way, is 7 and 5/16. So that's what I'm going to make. I'm just going to leave this one together because we're actually going to start on this one. So I need to cut the length of this side, the length of this side, and my base to that 7 and 5/16. So let's remove the tape. And then we will go ahead and cut it down to size. Now for the longer drawer, my ruler, this is 11 inches wide, but we want to take 3/8 of an inch off so that we have a little bit of wiggle room. And remember, I don't want the drawer to be 7 and 5/8, I want it to be 7 and 5/16. So the first two pieces that I cut, the sides that I cut, the extras that I cut, I made those 7 and 5/16. So I now have to cut the bottom of the drawer, and it's going to be 10 and 5/8, which is the 11 minus the 3/8. So that's going to be the width of the drawer, and then I got to do that 7 and 5/16 wide. And I already have these two ends, which will be these two ends like this. So then I need two long ends to go with the bottom of the drawer. So let's go ahead and cut. I've already measured the 10 and 5/8, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that little tiny piece off. I'm going to stay on the inside of my marks. There we go. So we're going to cut that off. So that's going to be the width of my bottom of my box, and it's giving me lots of wiggle room there. So now I have to cut it the 7 and 5/16. I'm going to just make sure that I am the right width of my, that's right, okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut from there to there, and that's going to be the depth of the drawer. Okay. So this is our base. This is what's going to slide into the box. That's our base. These are our two sides here. So now we have to cut a 3-inch height, the longer sides. And I'm going to use this piece. Hopefully I have 3 inches there. I do, good. So we're going to go ahead and cut one of these, and we can use these pieces if you want, but I always use this and then I remeasure it just to make sure it's even. And then I'm just going to remeasure it. Just look at the measurement and make sure it's even. That's 3. That's 3. And then because you trace the outside of your pattern, I'm going to just go on the inside of this line. So now we have the front of our drawer. Let me get you back into the camera here. The front of our drawer, the sides of our drawers, that one's that one, that one, that one. Yes. And I just need one more for this, the back of the drawer. So I need one more piece cut out of that. And, oops. Let's put those two to there. Let's set this aside, and I have one last piece here. So I had 6 pieces of chipboard out, and I did use a scrap piece from another project. So I'm just looking to see if I have any larger scrap pieces that I could use. I'm going to worry about it. I'm just going to use this one. Now I have to cut off this piece. And I normally measure it just because you don't want to get a wonky side. So I'm going to go 1.5 inches in. Cut this piece off. And then cut that last side piece. So it's all just a matter of cutting your base, making sure that it's measuring your holes in your box, and making sure you go about 3/8 inches thinner and shorter than the hole of your box, and then cutting your pieces to fit, and then doing a test run. Always, 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 always tape it and do a test run. Nothing worse than putting all that packing tape and all that effort into it and not having the drawer fit. And you really can't cut it once you get the packing tape on it. So it's always better to measure twice and maybe cut 3 or 4 times and then put it together. But cutting it a couple of times just so you want it to fit properly. So and I'll just go across this little score mark here. There you go. Let's move all these extra pieces aside. So these are now our 2 longer sides of our bottom drawer, like that. So I'm going to go ahead and tape him and do a test run, make sure he fits in, and then we're going to start doing the packing tape next.